Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, it's the greatest conversation of all time about the greatest collection of all time of greatest games of all time. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, joined as always by my co-host Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. How are you, Patrick?
I'm doing well. It is going good. I went for a run today.
Is it? And I want to hear all about that, but just real
No,
fast.
no, let's discard that. Let's discard the run thing.
No, I do. I want to hear. I'm curious. But is it okay? It's going good. Or would I say
it's going well?
I should be saying it's going well.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. Well, right, is the adjective.
Okay.
Or wait, the adverb.
Okay.
Right. So I'm doing well, or it is going well. It describes the verb of going or doing. But if I'd say, how are you? You could say, I am good. But if you say I'm doing good, that means like you're doing good deeds.
Which I am.
That's the one thing I will always say about Mark, is that he is doing good deeds. However,
I'm lousy with them.
I think well as an adjective can mean like physically well, right? Like physically healthy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Language is an evolving creature.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Look,
nothing means anything.
Right, nothing means anything. If I say I'm doing good, then fine. I'm doing good. That'd be good deeds.
We live in a world where couldn't care less. Or could care less.
Right. We don't even know anymore.
Yeah, where could care less is generally accepted.
Right, which is insane because it means that you care a certain amount.
And you could care more, but at least we have porgs.
We do have
to
the porg.
center us.
It's cute. It is cute. I like pushing its belly and making it dance and talk. If you don't know what that was, we talked about it in the last episode. There's a small robotic org from Star Wars here at the in the booth with us, and occasionally it'll chirp and make some noise. But Mark, that's not why we're here. Let's get into our topic: the Super NES Classic Edition. So first things first, getting a hold of one of these things.
Mm-hmm.
You and I both had the luxury of pre-ordering them.
That's right.
Which we realized in a panic while we were recording this show several weeks ago that they were available, stopped what we were doing, and pre-ordered these things for pickup from Best Buy, which I think is one of the few like non-buggy outlets for pre-orders on this thing, right?
Yeah, we didn't seem to see very many reports of pre-orders getting canceled
or even delayed. Like a lot of Amazon pre-orders are being pushed back for a couple months.
Well, that seems kind of dirty because they didn't ship out any pre-orders and they haven't been for sale on Amazon at all, but they definitely had a lot for their Amazon treasure trucks.
Yeah, I mean,
morning of the 29th.
It's kind of the same story, or a variations on the same story as like the GameStop and ThinkGeek. That like GameStop obviously had access to more, but they chose to sell them in their ThinkGeek bundles, so that you would also get a big Mega Man helmet.
Well, I also think that was kind of gross because on the morning or whatever of the 29th, both GameStop and ThinkGeek released some anyways that you could purchase without having to buy a bundle, and we saw Amazon do the same kind of thing with the NES Classic Edition when in July or whenever it was they had a bunch available for the treasure truck. I don't know, I think that's kind of, and then Walmart of course was a nightmare for people. Even people who got pre-orders in, some of them got put on back order. It's all been, Best Buy turned out to be an okay place to pre-order from.
Yep. And so I live pretty near the Best Buy from which we both pre-ordered this thing. So I swung by on Thursday night Thursday night the 28th, just to see if there were people in line. And sure enough, there were people, standing and sitting outside on chairs and stuff, presumably all night long to get this thing. Ditto the Toys R Us, which is right next door. Toys R Us, if you recall, was not taking pre-orders. But it was nice to just sort of like drive by and be like, I'm gonna go home and sleep in my bed and come here over lunch and pick it up.
I mean, that was definitely a luxury that a lot of people were not
for
afforded.
sure.
So we were very lucky to get ours in. But in general, obviously not everybody is going to be able to get one on launch day. That's just not a thing that exists anywhere ever. But it seems like a lot more people. Yeah, you did maybe have to wait out for a long time outside of a store, but a lot of people who wanted one, way more than ever had an NES Classic Edition, were able to walk away probably day one than were able to get an NES Classic total.
Yeah, for sure. And, we can expect to see more of these things as the weeks go by and as we get closer to the holiday season. I'm sure we're just going to see even more of them. So, yeah, a little bit of the like drama of just obtaining one of these things is, kind of sucked out of the room a little bit.
Yeah, it feels that way. Especially from the perspective of having one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, yes, but we are speaking from a position wherein we were both able to secure these things. I picked mine up, like I said, on Friday over my lunch break. I think you picked yours up a little bit earlier. And walked right in to the counter. They apologized for the wait. I was there for like 3 minutes. But yeah, so overall impressions of this thing from like a hardware perspective, right?
Yeah, so if you have an NES Classic Edition, I feel like okay, by itself, the system by itself looks great.
Yep.
It's smaller than I thought it would be, which is a weird thing saying. But even in comparison to the NES Classic Edition,
yeah, it is smaller. Yeah,
like the proportions or like I can't.
Yeah, just the scale is
the scale
is smaller.
Seems smaller.
And I wonder if like its height maxes out at the same height and its width maxes out at the same width. It's just that there are like, the Super Nintendo is kind of like carved in a little bit. And of course we are talking about the North American version of this, which is the only one that has the like purple slidey buttons, and it's the only one that looks like that. The European and Japanese one look the same, or to each other, and different from this one.
It all makes sense if you see a picture.
Yeah, just Google some pictures. Yeah, I mean it is still a little weird to me that it has no cartridge. That it like the top of the machine looks empty, which when you're playing it is never what a Super Nintendo looks like. And then there's the controller port issue. Let's talk about this. So it has what appear to be Super Nintendo controller ports, little itty bitty ones, on the front. But as it uses the sort of like Wii connection or Wiimote connection things, you have to like open a like secret hatch to get to these things. And the way it opens is not intuitive. You've got to kind of like stick your fingernails under these like little like slots and then kind of like pull like forward and up and then flip it down.
And it's like attached on a hinge. So it's always connected to the Super Nintendo. And that seems, I don't know, hopefully it won't. I try to be careful, but like that seems prone to breaking.
Yeah, for sure. Well, because like I'm not going to leave controllers plugged in and like that thing open. I'm going to close it up every time I'm done with it.
Yeah, and especially the first time you're like breaking it open, you're not entirely sure how it's supposed to work.
You assume that you assume that you are in fact breaking it open.
So it looks the one thing I will say about the controller port is it looks seamless.
Yeah,
when it's closed.
Yeah.
And I guess in my head I was expecting it, I don't know, almost to be like a VCR like shutter or whatever where it would push in.
Sure, yeah.
And you would just
plow through and it would
yeah. And then when you pulled it out, it would the
spring load shut on its own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's functional. I talking about the controllers themselves.
Yes.
They feel so good. They feel just like SNES controllers as I remember them, more textured than I remember them.
Yeah, so we pulled out. I've got my old Super Nintendo, and so we pulled out a one of my 30-year-old controllers right now, just to sort of compare the texture. And I don't know if it's because that controller has been handled by children and men for for 30 years, but the texture on it has dulled.
And
right?
I assume it is that it has been dulled by time, and we just have never had
and skin flakes.
An original one to compare it to. One thing that I was super excited to see in the controllers, because I remember hearing when it was first announced that for those of you in Europe or who have never seen a North American SNES in person, the controllers obviously are like different. They don't have the color combinations of the other ones.
Right.
And also the X and Y button are convex.
Right. So instead of being sort of like bubbled up, they kind of scoop in. Yeah.
And like I never thought about it before because I didn't realize that the controllers in Europe and Japan were not that way. They were all concave. They were all bubble. And I remember hearing when the Classic Edition was first announced that the North American controllers, just for like simplicity's sake, they would all be concave. They would all be bubble. And so I was really excited to open it up and like get the controllers out and see that they actually had like done they had paid that attention to detail, that
it mirrors the
original. The buttons are like convex and concave, which is really cool. It's a cool bit of design because you can tell what button you're holding without having to look at it. You can just feel the difference between the two.
Right. And it's not like so totally complicated because it's as complex as like the D-pad, right? It's only 4 different buttons in 4 like cardinal directions. But yeah, there is something like kind of comforting about having that extra little sensory reminder of like you're pushing X and Y now, or you're pushing A and B now.
Well, just that they really had paid like complete homage to this machine and all of its little like
syncratic or idiosyncrasies.
Yeah, idiosyncrasies between regions.
Yeah. So yeah, on like a hardware perspective, in that way, it's good. The controllers are solid. Cords are a little bit longer than they were.
Yeah, I think like 1.5 feet longer.
Yeah, I'm still using my super long HDMI cable to just pull the whole machine over, because like if I want to be able to hit the reset button to change games or use save states or whatever.
And I just like roll my office chair up in like front of my TV basically.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes a little too close for some of these games. Star Fox, which we will get into, I'm sure, a little bit later. But overall, just like they did with the NES Classic Edition, it's a great looking piece of hardware.
Yeah.
That does a great job of capturing, like, I know some people don't like the North American design, but everything that I remember about the machine.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like it or not like it, that's the thing from my childhood. So, at this point, to me, it doesn't matter which one looks better. That one looks like my childhood. So speaking of looks like my childhood, maybe that's as good a transition as any to get into what these games look and feel and play like now. So, obviously we haven't had an opportunity to play every game on here yet. Either to completion or even some even at all. But yeah, what are your like thoughts once you actually like get to flip through the library here? Like,
it feels like, so with the NES Classic Edition, there are games that I really like on there. The like Mario 3 is of course a classic. But for the most part, no,
there are other games.
Yeah, like for the most part, outside of that, there were games that I was like interested in trying, but very few that felt precious to me. Like there were so many that just felt like disposable and like I'm never gonna play this. I'm never gonna touch this.
Right.
With the Super NES Classic Edition, I feel the complete opposite. Like I felt a little overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
And like a little bit like a kid who gets taken to their parent by a toy store and it's like, you can pick out anything you want from here.
Right.
Because it's like, but I want like, them all. I want to try them all. I want to play with them all.
Right.
And there are so many like bigger, longer, like meatier experiences.
Yeah, well, and with that, I love that there are bigger, longer, meatier experiences on this, but there are fewer like pick up and play experiences, right? Like the NES Classic, even if you're like, I'm never really gonna play Balloon Fight, I'm never really gonna play Ice Climber, I'm never really gonna play Bubble Bobble, I'm never really gonna play Mario Brothers. Those are games. Excite Bike, you could go on. The list could go on forever. But like those are games that if you had the machine on at a party and it was just going through a tracked screens, that someone would be like, oh, I'd play that for 5 minutes. I don't think there are any games like that on this, with the exception of like maybe Contra and like Street Fighter, maybe like Punch Out. Like everything else is like an experience that you're investing in.
Well, especially there are a lot of RPGs, or even like a game like Zelda, which is RPG-esque,
right?
And
where and Secret of Mana, like
like Secret of Mana, where it's harder to just sit down, play it for a little bit, and then be like, well, now I'm gonna jump over and play Secret of Mana for a couple of minutes. Oh, I'm gonna pop back over to Earthbound. Like it doesn't really work that way, which is awesome. And like, do I want to play Earthbound? Absolutely. So will I put the time in to do it? Yes. But it's just a different experience than what we were having with the NES.
It's totally a different way. Like the only, I guess when you and I played Zelda for the original Legend of Zelda for our NCS Classic Edition series earlier, that was one where it was like coming back to the game after a while and like felt like a real experience. We're sort of on and off playing the original Final Fantasy on there right now, which is another like revisiting it kind of thing, but that's not how I view that machine. You know, I view it as like a one-off experience box. And the SNES Classic Edition is not at all like that. To the point where I don't find myself using the save state at all. And maybe that'll change when I get into playing like Super Castlevania or like some other stuff. But like as it is, I'm kind of happy to just use the save points that are built into these games.
And which most of them do have.
Yeah, there's a little icon on each game that indicates whether it supports like saving within the game. And it's like 15 out of 21 of them do it. And it's always like, oh, okay, great, why? You know? I guess Mega Man X, it was a good example of a game that probably should have had it, but just had like a password feature.
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna be using save scrubbing a lot in Mega Man X.
In Mega Man X, yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So what have you gotten an opportunity to play?
So I think the thing I've played the most, because I got caught up in it, I love Super Castlevania 4.
Yeah.
I think it's an amazing game. It's probably my favorite Castlevania ever. That game is rad as hell. Like the music is awesome. The graphics are so like specific to the time.
Yeah.
In like a really fun way. Like it has like the mode 7 thing. Like it's going like one of those rooms where you have to hold on to, you like flick your whip, hold on to like a I don't even know, like an anchor point.
Like a grapple point.
Yeah, like a grapple point, and then the whole room like spins around you.
So that's I'm not a huge Castlevania fan and haven't really sampled it here. But so it does make good use of like the mode 7 graphics in this. Not all of the mode 7 stuff has aged all that well, I don't think. Like Mario Kart's really tough to play looking the way it does. Spent a little time, Sarah was playing Mario Kart, and I played a little bit of it too. And like it's the way mode 7 works is it takes a single image and makes it one polygon, right? So that you can move around a two-dimensional image as though it's 3D, right? But it means that there's no like volume or height to anything within the plane, right? So like in Mario Kart, there'll be like these occasional objects that, you know, represent something in like 3D space, but like most walls don't really exist in the game, you know, like it's just sort of like painting on the ground that you know you can't cross.
Well, and I feel like that's where seeing these images blown up onto like a 60-inch screen. And when I am in my like an office chair sitting, I don't
Even
know,
closer,
like 5
yeah.
or 6 feet away, it's too it really shows the flaws.
Yeah, yeah. I've been playing a lot of Super Mario RPG, which is a game that I love. And I always thought that the sprite work was super like fun in that, and it's kind of the same deal as Donkey Kong Country, where they had pre-rendered models and they just turned them into 16-bit graphics. But it being blown up so big on the screen, like I don't really love the way it looks now. And yeah, one game that I'm surprised at how good it looks using Mode 7 is F-Zero. The just it looks so fast. The game looks so fast when you have it like pumping out in HD. That like all of the kind of textures that you're zooming by are very like bright and vibrant, and the game just feels like I know it's still like blocky and stuff, but it just looks good for what it's doing.
So are you playing in like with the CRT filter, pixel perfect, 4x3?
I go back and forth between pixel perfect and 4x3. I don't have any need for that for the CRT, I don't think.
Yeah,
How are you playing? Same way?
I do the 4x3.
Mm-hmm.
The pixel perfect I'm not crazy about because it kind of makes it stretches everything like long
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. So yeah, I've been playing in 4x3, and I've also been playing with like the cityscape frame
Oh yeah.
that you can pull up. It's like I don't know, kind of just like blue and black cityscape kind of like at night. I find it was perfect for when I was messing around in Earthbound.
Yeah, that is perfect.
And it just kind of like fades in the background for me. I don't even like really notice it on the other games.
After a little bit, I've been playing with the like wood grain one, which is that also just kind of like fades into the background, as they all do, after just a little bit of play with them.
But I'm definitely no technical expert,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't really have an eye for that kind of thing. But as far as I can tell, like the emulation it's
perfect, right?
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not noticing any like glitches or weird things that would come with like emulating, pirating the games and like getting them off of something online. Yeah, everything seems super clean. And like switching between games is like fast and easy and fun.
Okay, so the big, I guess, like surprise when this thing was announced, and leading up to it, one of the areas of excitement was Star Fox 2.
Star Fox 2!
The canceled game that was completed. Nobody had ever seen it before, except in like the leaked beta, which we now know was definitely not like the completed version. In order to access Star Fox 2, you have to play through the first level Corneria of Star Fox, the original Star Fox. And man, was that a good reminder of how much I do not like Star Fox on Super Nintendo.
Okay, so I expected this to be true for me as well. That I was like, Star Fox is the only good Star Fox is Star Fox 64.
It's a dead Star Fox.
That's right. That's right. We're Starship Troopers now. The only good bug is a dead bug. I put on Star Fox to beat the first level and access Star Fox 2. And I ended up playing through the whole game.
Whoa.
I had way more fun than I expected to. And like I love the game doesn't look like what it thinks it looks like, but just the like arcadey simplicity of like you're on a track and you're just like shooting things is really fun for me. And I don't have a hard time buying into the game's graphical limitations when I'm having that fun.
Yeah, I wonder if I need to buy one of those wireless controllers and stand way back.
That might be.
Because I found it almost like incoherent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've never been a big Star Fox, like original Super Nintendo Star Fox fan. It just has always felt like not great to control. Even in the best of circumstances, I find the graphics muddy and difficult to comprehend. So I don't know. It's difficult for me to want to go back and like reevaluate it.
Sure.
I have much better memories of Star Fox 64, but I honestly wonder how that one holds up as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's the 3D remake of it on the 3DS, but I think going back to the original Star Fox on Nintendo 64 would be that wouldn't be a
But
good
at least they were
experience
able
either.
to use like actual polygons.
Right. So the thing with Star Fox and Star Fox 2 is that they utilize what's called the SFX chip, which or Super FX, which is it?
Super FX.
Super FX chip, which technological marvel at the time allowed the Super Nintendo to display multiple polygons.
Or like fakes it.
Well, I mean, it fakes it. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. There's a very limited amount of polygons I think it can display.
Right. It's like 50 or something like that on screen at a time, which, like that's not enough for Mario's hand now. So it is some incredibly primitive 3D. And I don't know, I can totally respect like not wanting to go back to the original Star. Like it is borderline not worth it, right? But let's talk a little bit about Star Fox 2, which is, the hidden gem on the not gem, I guess it's the hidden it's the special thing on here. What'd you think of Star Fox 2, Mark?
I think that Star Fox 2 was using the FX2 chip, which was also used for Yoshi's Island. And graphically, I think it looks a lot better. It's not the game I thought it was going to be.
Sure.
In that it is. So in Star Fox, you pick a path and you just like follow that path linearly until you reach the end of the game. And then there's like 3 paths that you can choose from with some like
there's some like forking paths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This game is much more of like, I don't want to oversell it. It is like a strategy game, but you can go to any area that you want to, basically. And if you focus your energies all in one direction, you can still lose. Because as you are making moves, as you are going to different areas, so too are the enemies.
Right. So a lot of those mechanics are present in the DS game Star Fox Command. That actually lets you like draw your ship's path on like a bigger map. And so it is, we have seen those sorts of those mechanics come back and be revisited in a slightly more successful form, but like it's still, this is a failure of Command, and I feel like it's a failure of Star Fox 2 that the individual encounters are rough, right? So when you actually run headlong into an enemy unit, then you're flying around a 3D space or in the little chicken walkery thing. And those encounters are where the game gets, that's where it's less fun.
Yeah, again, and this is coming to somebody who does not like Star Fox on the Super Nintendo. I kind of thought Star Fox 2 was garbage.
Oh yeah, okay.
Like I think better or more interesting in some respects than the original Star Fox. It's interesting to me to see how all these mechanics that got left in a canceled Star Fox game, like the little chicken walker and the more strategy elements that got put into Command, and the walker didn't come back until what, Star Fox 0 is the first time we saw it again.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah,
and it's not in 64.
So it's interesting to me to see like almost the prototype version of these things, but the game itself I find to be very not fun.
Right. And if you're turning on your SNES Classic Edition, you've got so many other huge experiences that you could be spending time with that it's kind of like, all right, thank you for the tour of, an Elseworld 1996, but, I can play Secret of Mana.
Yeah, like I think it's really cool that it exists, and I think it's really cool that they released it. But, and take my opinion for what it's worth, because I don't like Star Fox all that much in general. But do I ever want to revisit either one of these games? Not really.
I think I'm gonna play the original Star Fox a couple more times. I had fun, and
Yeah, so if you really liked the original and continue to enjoy the original Star Fox, so what was your take on Star Fox 2?
I actually didn't get a chance to dig into Star Fox 2 yet. Like I said, it was the first thing that I wanted to do was play the first level of Star Fox and then jump right into Star Fox 2, and I ended up playing all the way through Star Fox.
It's so I mean, I would imagine. I wonder if they have the statistics on this, like how many people that's like the first thing that they do, because there's space for it on the main menu.
Yeah,
for
it's like
Star Fox
it's like
2.
a wrapped present.
It's a wrapped present.
Yeah,
and that's just so like you just want to open that up.
You want to tear it open,
even though I know what's in there.
It's not a surprise. All right. So, you've played some Castlevania. I've played some Super Mario RPG. What other games have you gotten a chance to dig into here?
So I also started up Mega Man X, which is a game that I had never played before.
It's a good game.
It is a good game. It's also funny. I don't know. Maybe I just haven't played that many Mega Man or Mega Man-esque games because it was very funny. I had been playing SteamWorld Dig 2, and it has kind of like that same wall cling / climb mechanic. And then when it showed up in Mega Man X, I was like, what?
All games are like this now, man.
But yeah, like I said, that's definitely one that I think I will be save scrubbing, and also using the SNES Classics rewind feature, which I have not taken, I haven't used yet, but which I can see would have a lot of utility in some of Mega Man's more triggery bosses.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and some of the Mega Man X bosses are tough, especially when you get past the like 8 robot bosses and into the like Sigma's lair or whatever the end of that game is called. Yeah, that's a good game. And I'm looking forward to getting into it. Have you played any of the? We mentioned kind of up top that this game is, or that this system is sort of a collection of the greatest games of all time, right? Or games that you could label greatest game of all time. For me, those include like Super Mario World, Super Metroid, Link to the Past, and Final Fantasy 3. Like those are all candidates for, or Earthbound, I guess, as well. For like greatest games of all time, right? Have you gone into any of those?
Yeah, I have like 5 to 7 minutes
in each one?
like saves in each one. So like Earthbound, like gone through the menus, named my characters, named my favorite meal, that kind of stuff.
Named your dog.
Yeah. Right. And then made it up close to the asteroid, went back home to talk to my mom, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to go like sample something else.
Right.
Played through a little bit of Super Mario World, and that I think for me is one of the kind of few experiences on the Classic Edition that is kind of just like pick up, do a little bit, and then move on to something else.
Yeah, I think I may have mentioned this last week or some other time, but like since Super Mario World came out on the 3DS, I think I've played through it 5 times. Like I love that game. Sarah and I turned it on and played a little 2-player, and we got through the first 2 worlds. I let her like kind of do the regular path, and I like did the Star World stuff while she was doing Donut Land. But yeah, that's a game that I love and will come back to in little bursts here and there for sure.
And for Super Mario World, it was the moment where like I could really tell that the controller felt right.
Yeah.
Because with the NES Classic Edition, I was pretty young when the Nintendo was out, and I played it, but my most formative memories are with the Super Nintendo. And so that's the controller. And like I played a lot of Super Mario All-Stars, so the version of like the first 3 Mario games that I remember best are the All-Star versions.
Right,
that were
and with that controller.
With that controller. And so, like there were times in Super Mario Brothers 3 where you'd have to do something like on the NES Classic Edition where, you have to duck, slide, or pick up a shell while you're flying.
Yeah, sure.
Where it was difficult for me to do it on the NES Classic controller because I didn't have that muscle memory.
Yeah, it's so weird, like the difference between like holding one button with your thumb and like pushing the other one when they're side by side and when they're on like an angle.
It makes like a huge difference. Yeah. And so, but playing with the Super Nintendo controller again, like it came back so easily.
Yeah.
And it felt how I remember it feeling, or how like my muscle memory was used to. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to diving more into World.
Yeah, World for sure. Super great game. What about like Link to the Past and Super Metroid?
Haven't even touched yet, because I
Yeah.
feel like, especially with Link to the Past, there's no good like stopping point.
No, I'll just
It
play
just
it until it's
snowballs.
done. I'll just play it until I forget what everyone looks like, and my world is just Zelda.
Well, and the other thing that I haven't touched yet that I'm really excited to play is Yoshi's Island, Super Mario World 2.
So I did get into Yoshi's Island this morning. I woke up early and was like, I've been playing a lot of this thing, a lot of games on this box, and I'm still just like, I need all the hours in all the days, and I'll never finish all these games.
Well, because this is a game that I guess I didn't even really realize that I think outside of the Game Boy Advance remake, it hasn't been available.
Right. So, and the Game Boy Advance remake doesn't have the Super FX2 chip like in the actual cartridge. So they kind of faked some of the graphical features of the game.
And it has less buttons.
Yeah, that's right. Right, fewer buttons there. And the only version of this thing that was available, you could play the GBA port on the Wii U eShop for a virtual console, I guess. And I have done some of that, but playing it actually on the Super Nintendo emulated hardware is great. Like I played through the first two worlds. The game is so like big and long, and is, you know how like Yoshi games have like a certain, like there's a value placed on like exploring and like 100%ing levels and collecting stuff. This game does such a good job of marrying the like Mario World style of gameplay with that like Yoshi collectathon, that like all other Yoshi games have sort of veered too far into the like slow collection. This is still like a high speed, like action packed game, but with all of those collecty elements. It's really fun.
It's just crazy to me that it hasn't been available in this form.
Yeah.
For 20 years.
Yeah, since the cart originally came out. Speaking of since the card originally came out, so all these games, you know, are like have title screens and have their years on them. Star Fox 2 says 1996 on it. Is that weird?
I guess that's when it was intended to come out.
Yeah, it didn't though. So yeah, if when you get a chance to play Yoshi's Island, I will be super curious to hear about your experiences with it. So this means that there are, like we said, those two like kind of tentpole experiences that we haven't touched yet, Super Metroid and Link to the Past. But that leaves still so many big RPGs untouched, right? I haven't started up Earthbound yet because I feel like I want to wait until I can commit time to just that. Final Fantasy III.
I haven't even touched yet, only because I love that game so much.
Me too.
That, I don't know, it feels like sacrilege to just play a couple minutes and then bounce to something else.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm really, God, we were just talking about on the news episode that like there are all these games coming out on Switch, and like then on top of that, like, oh, Super Mario Run is fun again. That's just like, oh, I don't know when I'm gonna sink 80 hours into Final Fantasy 3 or Secret of Mana or Earthbound. I don't know. I'm a little bit like, when is this going to happen? And it can be, you know, years from now that we eventually get to these things.
But I definitely am feeling right now that I could just like unplug from new products,
yeah,
and have plenty to play for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, for sure. And like all games that I'm like super excited about and happy with.
I will say that one, and two thoughts. One is, I think a lot of that is I haven't really purchased a lot on Virtual Console.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think you were playing or played through Earthbound within the past year.
Yeah.
On your new 3DS.
Yeah,
there was a little bit is on there, and
there was a little bit when the new 3DS came out where I just had a policy of, if they release a Super Nintendo game on it, I'm going to buy it. And I knocked that off eventually because I was like, what do I need Breath of Fire 2 for? Never gonna play that.
But because I don't have a new 3DS and a lot of these games, I don't know. I didn't have a Wii U, so
yeah,
Virtual Console. I haven't played a lot of these for a long time. If you're somebody who has been collecting Virtual Console titles as they become available, and maybe you play through other means, then it will feel less special to you because you'll have these games available to you all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is something about having the designated hardware for it. I mean, I like the ability to take those Super Nintendo games on the go with the new 3DS, but like, oh man, I also love throwing it up on the TV.
Well, that's my second thing is I think the Switch is beginning to spoil me for gaming, and this was a good example of how, because like I was playing Mega Man X, and boy, did I really just want to like be able to pick it up and take it to bed or something,
or like put something on the TV.
Yeah. Like it feels, it's how gaming has been forever, but it feels very limited to me right now to have to play these games on the Switch. All it tells me is if they re-release these titles on Virtual Console, I will.
You're just gonna double dip, yeah.
You won, Nintendo.
You won, and you always come out on top eventually. All right, I think that that pretty much summarizes our experiences with this thing. I'm very happy with it. I look forward to we're recording on Sunday instead of Monday. I'm looking forward to my Monday night. I can spend some hours of Super Mario RPG.
Well, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, and we had already had we have an entire episode about a hypothetical N64 Classic Edition, and we kind of came down on the side of it's probably not going to happen.
Right.
But that trademark is out there.
Sure.
Looming like the sword of Damocles.
Yeah.
And if they do an N64, I think it'll be the first time that they have to make real compromises.
Sure.
And like real, like, I guess, like hard choices about what it will be and how it'll look like. But if they did one, I 100% would, do everything in my power to get one.
Oh, you're there is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think I made this case before, but I don't know that I will be. I think that maybe one where I'm like, I think I'm okay. I can play these games in other formats and other places. Mark, that's going to wrap up our conversation of the SNES Classic Edition. Of course, we would always love to hear your experiences with this thing. Mark and I just walked into Best Buy and they gave them to us, and also they kissed our feet and apologized and gave us peeled grapes, fed right to our mouths. But if you had a more difficult experience, we'd love to hear about that. Or if you're loving this thing, that's good too. We'd love to hear about it. Our email address is nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com, or you can tweet at us at NinCartSociety. Or get to our Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. So last week we talked a little bit about our fantasy Super Smash Brothers draft. We each selected a lineup of characters that had never before appeared in Super Smash Brothers. And we got just we got some feedback from people on all these different platforms. One note or one on Twitter suggested there should be characters from Chrono Trigger in our lineups. Mark, are you well versed enough in Chrono Trigger to have a character that you would pick for your lineup in there?
I don't know. What's the name of the frog?
His name is Frog.
Oh, there you go.
I would also go Frog 100%. He's a frog.
But I actually kind of feel sheepish that we didn't include anybody from Chrono Trigger. I feel like that's a good poll.
Yeah, and it's a formative game on the Super Nintendo. It's weird that it's not on the SNES Classic. It's third party technically, but I put Ulberich on there, and he's a Switch Square Enix character, so why not?
I put James Bond. So
you did put James Bond, and I did not object. We also got a note from Pete saying, "I can't believe no one picked Travis Touchdown."
Oh man, yeah, that's a huge glaring omission, especially since we had talked about Travis. What is the new game called?
No More, or Travis Returns.
Yeah,
No
Travis
More
Returns
Heroes?
just being like a stealth way for Suda51 to try to get Travis Touchdown into the next
Right, to sort of like
Smash Brothers game.
mainstream them a little bit. Yeah, so those are some suggestions for characters that we missed. Pretty glaring omissions, Mark. We're awful. We did a bad job.
Boo us.
Also, I thought after we had that conversation, one of us should have had Paper Mario on our lists.
Yeah, we were talking about that as soon as we
were done recording.
Yeah.
Because like it's just far enough away from real Mario that like he's just different enough and just right enough, and he'd be floating around like paper. It'd be perfect. But so yeah, if you have any more suggestions for characters that we missed, we'd love to hear about it. All those same places: Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com, or tweeting at NinCart Society, or getting us on Facebook. All right, let's move out of this little recap section here. And that's going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. You can hit us up in all those places we mentioned already. We'd love for you to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Share the episode with friends.
This is like part B of our anniversary episode.
So happy anniversary to us. Good present that you could get us. The first year anniversary, I believe, traditionally the gift is sharing and rating and reviewing, right? I believe that's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be great. If you like Mark and Mine's opinions, you can always check out our comic book reviews and discussions on retconpunch.com. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can check out his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Eller saying thanks for listening.
What's a Creative Podcast Network?
Hi, I'm Kelsey.
I'm Kimmy.
And we're the hosts of Talk 30 Rock to Me.
Do you crave cheese late at night?
Do you have lots of thoughts on your mind grapes?
Do you think a rape whistle can double as an accessory?
Do you miss 30 Rock?
We sure do.
We miss it so much, we started a podcast about it.
New episodes every Tuesday. Subscribe today.